Genius Brain listeners, this podcast is brought to you by BetterHelp. Mental health is mental wealth. And listen, invest in yourself with therapy, my friends, because look, if a better you is on the other side, why not take the trip there? Here's the thing with BetterHelp. You pay a flat fee for weekly sessions, saving you big on cost and time. A lot of people have this worry that, therapy is going to cost an arm and a leg, but with BetterHelp, listen, the cost can be super, super affordable for you, and which makes it very much within reach. So with over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. Your well-being is worth it. Visit betterhelp.com/genius today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/genius.
It's impossible. Change is impossible. And she says, it's because I'm old. And I was like, the funny thing is, you didn't change even in your 30s, in your 40s, in your 50s. So it's not because of age, it's because of you. You say, I don't want to change. And that's fine. I don't have to be around you. And for her, what she has to understand too, she's like, I want to be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Genius Brain Podcast. Listen, this is not in the original place that we obviously shoot it, right? This is literally in the living room of fucking Robin himself.
I swear I normally wear this hat. I swear.
We were supposed to shoot in the studio, but I completely messed up a couple of things. My parents came into town. I messed up that date, so we just had to do things on the fly. I had to whip out the old camera, bring out the old computer, and start recording. And thank God I had these skills, because if not, I'd be fucked. But yeah, normally I would just do a solo podcast, but I'm tired of talking to myself. I fucking don't like it. Listen, parents came in, fucking annoying, as per usual, dealing with an annoying... Let me tell you something, dude. Today...
Wait, before you get started.
Oh, yeah.
Would you like any of this?
It's going already?
Yeah. Look, if for some reason Stores and Pickle, you happen to be watching this and you're like, you know what? I need more middle-aged, overweight Asians to vape. Send us a couple Mighty Pluses.
Is this working?
Yeah, let it kind of heat up, but just, it's just slowly. Again, I'm just trying to act like I think it's working.
Okay. Well, the first hit was good. Nothing else came out on the second or third one. But either way, parents come into town. And if you guys are listening out there and you have Asian parents, or if you have Korean parents in general, it's a lot to deal with, right? Like, number one, I'm very grateful that, number one, my parents are alive and they get to see my kid, which it's like a dream come true. I really do appreciate it. But man, can they fucking get under your skin? Like,
Look, every single bit of humor and shit talking that you have, that's all, thanks, mom and dad.
Dude. And so this is the thing too. Uh-huh. I know you can relate to, because, we all have very similar parents, right?
Overlapping in different ways.
In very different ways, right? Like, there are so many good things about my mom that I really appreciate, right? Mm-hmm. Like, she is a great cook. She loves her grandchild. But the thing is like, there are certain qualities about, like, parents, like my mom specifically, that she refuses to change. And the thing that she always says to me that gets under my fucking skin is that I'm too old, I'm not going to change. And I'm like, that's fine up until a certain point where you affect my kid, and my wife, right? So I can accept the majority of this because they're old. I get it. When you're old, you don't want to change. Yeah. I get it. I'm even in my 30s, I'm like that. So I get it. Yeah. But one of the things that got under my skin was basically, my mom has a very, very short temper, which for me growing up, like, I didn't know why I was so angry. And it was because it's learned behavior from her of how she deals with stress. Yeah. And it's always explosions and rage. Yeah. And, and they don't understand that. They're just like, oh, why is my kid acting up? It's like, bitch, who the fuck do you think I learned this shit from? And, and as you get older, you start to understand this. So, we were talking on the phone today, and then, I'm rocking the kid to sleep, side to side, back and forth. When
did they go? Did they just come down to?
Just for a day, and they left that night. Okay, so it was for the 100 days. So there's something called a pegil, for you guys don't know. Back in the day in Korea, kids wouldn't make it, so they would die. So if they passed 100 days, that means they usually survived, and we kind of keep it up as tradition. So they come and they leave, and so a day passes, and then my mom decides to go ahead and drop her little thing of wisdom, which I told her not to do when it comes to the kid stuff, because there's a few things that I take from her, but there's a lot of stuff that they do that's just woo-wah bullshit, right?
Okay.
That's just from the olden times.
Yeah, it's it comes from our shamanistic ancestry.
100%. So for her, she goes, don't rock the kid back inside. You're going to give him brain damage, right? And I told her too, like in Korean, I was like, we have a bed that rocks the shit out of him. I was like, what I do is way more gentle than what the bed does. So you don't have to worry about that.
Okay,
right?
so you're trying to hit your all due respect, Tomanga Farms.
Yeah.
But your crazy ass mom, you're trying to hit her with some logic right now. And then you're trying to get a logical response back.
So I told her, hey, like, this is what it is. And then she goes, I knew I shouldn't have talked to you. Immediately blows up on me. She goes, I knew I shouldn't have talked to you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
Like, I wasn't even angry. I was just hey, we have something that's actually a lot more violent than the way that I do it, right? So don't even worry about it. The kid is perfectly fine. We have a sleep trainer that we pay that teaches us how to put the kid to sleep. And she's like, I was like, okay. She basically says like, yeah, whatever. You know everything. Like a fucking child. And then as I'm talking mid-sentence, she fucking hangs up on me. And that shit set me through the fucking moon.
Wait, how many times has she hung up on you?
Like, she's done this before. And I told her not to do that.
Okay.
Right? Because it's fucking childish.
Okay.
And so, because she wants to say what she wants to say, but she doesn't want to hear what somebody else has to say. And so, basically,
so she wants to output, but there's no
input. And so, and what her idea of that is that, well, I get to say what I want, right? And you just have to take it. And what she doesn't understand, and it's because most people don't stand up to her like this, is that I actually don't. I really fucking don't. And I told her, you could say whatever you want to me, perfectly fine, but I still have to be able to talk. This is a conversation. Like, we can talk. You can say something, I can say something. You can't just end. I was like, and I basically what I told her was like, you speak to your husband that way, you don't talk to me that way. I was like, Appa has accepted your insanity. This is why he's still with you. Me, I don't have to accept it. I was like, the way you behave is like a fucking child. If you want to act like a child and you want people to love you for who you are, do that to Appa. Appa will do that all day. I'm not going to do it. So you got to fix the way that you talk to me. And so when we had this conversation, she just doesn't want to have it. And I told him, my dad too, he goes, you're not going to change her. I was like, see, that's the fucking problem. Like, you enable her. And so now that we have a child now, your spurts of anger, like immediately hanging up the phone, yelling, raising your voice, you will not do that in front of my kid. Like, because that's like stuff that I'm like slowly undoing, over time. And it's like, for her, she doesn't understand it. Like, she thinks that, oh, that's just the way things are. There's no such thing as that's just the way things are. And what she's going to have to understand now is that, listen, she is a very wise woman, right? Because she's older, she's been through a lot. And what I told her,
she knows what she knows. She knows
exactly.
Yeah, for
what
sure.
You know is what you know, but what you don't know, you have to understand you don't know. And it's a big pet peeve of mine that I think a lot of people have. It's like the idea of they can't just say, I don't know. Let me defer to somebody who does know, right? It's like the Asian parents thing where they always tell you to go to the hospital, but you can't get to the go themselves. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so she wouldn't even pick up my phone, which has pissed me off infinitely. Like, I'm still pissed about it. And I'm going to talk to her later on when I'm a little more calm. But then, I was talking to my dad and I was like, listen, if you don't want me to deal with this, then you have to deal with her. You have to tell her that her raising her voice and yelling, especially in front of the kid, it will never happen in my household. And I think, like, for them, like, the idea of like changing is just like, it's impossible. It's impossible. Change is impossible. And she says, it's because I'm old. And I was like, the funny thing is, you didn't change even in your 30s, in your 40s, in your 50s. So it's not because of age. It's because of you. You say, I don't want to change. And that's fine. I don't have to be around you. And for her, what she has to understand too, she's like, I want to be around the kid, more around the kid. That's fine. Then fix your fucking attitude. Because it's not going to be around the kid. Like, I absolutely refuse. It was hard enough as a kid, like, learning how to deal with these emotions and not understanding why I'm quick to shout, yell, get angry. And then I look at her and I'm like, oh, fuck, it's you. You taught me how to deal with this, with my emotions very, very poorly. And what she did in front of the kid recently that fucking pissed me off was like, when you, Korean parents do this, is like, she'll be like, when things go bad or something, she'll take the kid's hand and she'll be like, oh, hit it, nappa, nappa, bad, bad, bad. I hate that. because it teaches kids to deal with their problems through physical means, right? And it's stuff that I learned. And I'm trying to explain to her not to do that. And she goes, it's fine. You turned out fine. I was like, hey, I actually didn't turn out fine. Like, I didn't turn out fine, which is why I'm a fucking comedian. You know what I mean? It's like, there's ways to cope around these things. I was like, if my kid wants to be a comic, he's going to be the worst comic on earth. You know what I mean? He hasn't been through enough to even talk about anything. So like, to get them to understand that has been so fucking hard. Like, my dad kind of gets it because he's a lot more calm and chill now. And he doesn't want to fight. He has his annoying stuff too, but my mom is the biggest problem right now. And I know, like, hearing stories about your mom, like, our moms are like very similar in that type of sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's an archetype, right? I mean, you know, like, I don't know, like, clinical psychologists will say, like, the overbearing mother is the what do you call it? The overbearing mother causes a lot of anger, or us Koreans, right? We like to call it han, right? But that's for real, right? And we definitely have that overlap. One thing, though, that if you were to break it down to the core is this, right? Let's say it's true, right? Let's say mom and dad, they don't have you don't have right access, meaning you can only, like, they can't, like, they can, like you were saying earlier, they could dish it out, but they can't take, right? They can't download any information anymore. Let's say that's true, right? Then you have to ask yourself the hard question is, okay, then that's now out of my control. So then on the extreme end, does that mean you'll never see my kid again, right? Or let's say on the extreme Zen end, it's like you'll be able to navigate, and also if you are true that Zen status, you can be around your mom, even though you know that she can't download any information, and still be okay with that and still help navigate that, or even make that a life lesson for our kids where it's like, you know, as you grow up, I had to deal with this with my mom, with your grandma.
Yeah.
But this is how I manage this, and this is how I do this, and these are the tools that nobody ever taught me, nobody ever taught my mom, right? I mean, it's like, dude, we know so many mechanisms of like why things work now, right? Because we have so much access to the internet. But then on the flip side, what did our parents have? You know what I mean? That's why I'm also so shocked at how much my mom knows about growing things, right?
Yeah.
We have an overlap, right?
They do things like through osmosis.
Our moms, they know how to grow shit. You know what I mean? It's like wonderful, right? We first start with like, it fucking looks terrible. But they did that without the fucking internet. But then again, they had to do it to survive. So
yeah, for me, where I draw the line is like if it mentally affects my kid, right? So those type of behaviors
Can I go to that question? Sorry to interrupt. But the question is are you then going to maybe then teach your kid how to navigate through people like that? Or are you just going to protect them from that all the time?
It's not a matter of protecting them. At a certain age, kids can understand rationale, but this developmental stage is so important. And so where I draw the line is like, yeah, I can expose them to, Halmoni's craziness, but when they're at an ability to be able to navigate it and understand what's happening, right? As of right now, this kid's absorbing everything, right? And what I've noticed about this kid, and I know a lot, there's like this argument about nature versus nurture. I believe there is nature, but nurture,
they're tied together.
Yeah,
even the sperm cell stuff that's been going around.
I'm a pretty firm believer of nurture as well, right? Like that plays such a big hand. And I see it in this kid too, right? How I greet this child, how we see him in the morning, how we do things, it affects who he is, right? He smiles all the time because we always laugh in our household, right? It's not he came out the womb fucking laughing his ass off. He is learning how to find joy in things. And so like where I draw the line now is that early on in this age, it's like how my mom presents herself in front of the kid is very, very important, right? Because she doesn't understand till this day that what you do around a kid affects them in their future outside of things that are just not on purpose. You know what I mean? Because she's only thinking about if you teach them how to read, they read. She doesn't think if I smash a glass against this wall, it's traumatic for the kid and he might learn how to manage his emotions. She doesn't understand that, right? And if you try to get her to understand something she doesn't know, she immediately gets angry, which is why I know my mom is an emotional tyrant. She's very wise, but she's also a fucking dumbass.
But is that your autopilot as well? And then you have to like do some type of life hack to
the time.
So okay, so you're man like so you're autopilot, right? So like yeah, you don't have any defenses up. That's why they always say, right, when we're real tired, right? That's why when you first become parents, right, you don't get to sleep as much and things get jacked up, right?
Yeah.
So you're always at that tested state, right? That autopilot that comes out for you.
Oh, rage is the first thing.
Okay, so it's just an autopilot. It's from mom, right? Okay, so then you have the tools then because you've been educated to do something and then kind of work through that, but you still have your moments, right? So those are the moments that you want to kind of like, let's say, hide from like your kid, right? I think about this all the time, right? Damn, I hate the fact that if I want my kid to do the things that they do, I have to I have to come corrected on that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, right. So it's like even like my interactions with my mom, right? I'm like trying to train myself. Where again, dude, you know, Chewy, she grades me on a system. I said put a report card.
Yeah,
you know, and I've had fail. You know, it's like those montages where I think the best I ever got from her was like maybe a B minus, which is crazy because my whole life was fail. It was the level of fail. Was it F minus minus? You know what I'm saying? Dude, I've had moments where I didn't talk to my mom living under my parents' roof for 6 months at a time. That's not normal having to interact that often and have two people not fucking say a word for 6 months. So in that sense, in the empathy things, my friend, I get it. But also is how do you navigate your mom? I don't know, because one of my homies, he put it right, and I was like, okay, this is something I want to try implementing to my kid. Is you know how like
Genius Brain listeners, this podcast is brought to you by BetterHelp. Let's talk numbers. Traditional in-person therapy can cost anywhere from $100 to $250 per session, which adds up fast. But with BetterHelp Online Therapy, you can save on average up to 50% per session. With BetterHelp, you pay a flat fee for weekly sessions, saving you big on cost and time. Therapy should feel accessible, not like a luxury. With online therapy, you get quality care at a price that makes sense and can help you with anything from anxiety to everyday stress. Your mental health is worth it, and now it's within reach. Listen, I have benefited from therapy for a very long time, and I've been using BetterHelp for a very long time, which is why they are our long-term sponsor. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. Your well-being is worth it. Visit BetterHelp.com/genius today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/genius.
So my homie's really big on kids seeing a huge diverse set of people, right? And I get the development stages and where you're at, right? But let's say you were to even step out of that, right? To me, you know what kind of like what my new religion is in the sense of ideas of like tribes. Like tribes fascinate me because that way of life and the existence of human beings have been around for a really long time.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there was always the village idiots, the village, you know what I mean? I'm sure there is a diversity of even sociopaths, all of that, right?
I think the biggest difference that you and I are talking about is not protecting the kid from life and other people, but who you spend the most time around ends up being who you are.
Yeah, for sure. But how often are you going to see Tomanga farms?
Every day. They're going to be babysitting it.
Oh, okay. I didn't know this context. Okay. Hold on. I didn't know this backstory. I almost had an anxiety attack. I've never had an anxiety attack, but I can imagine the closest thing to that is having my mom raise my kid. Again, the context that I was talking about being all Zen-like was like, okay, she's up in Sacramento. You're going to stay a weekend or two, or you know what I mean? I thought that was the context.
We're eventually going to try to meld everything together, right?
I got you.
And the reason why, and look, even as I say these things, right, this is just because these are fresh topics and things that are on my mind right now.
Of course.
But on this podcast, I have overwhelmingly said more positive things about my mom than I have said negative, right? So with her, I would like for her to be around my kid because she could take care of him, and I could trust her to keep him alive.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is like
sure,
50% in the game.
Huh.
The other thing that she has to know, and she's already verbally said this out loud, like she would never step in the way of me parenting my child the way that I want to parent, because she didn't like it when her parents did the same to her. But she's already doing it.
Okay, so the autopilot kicks in.
Yeah, so her autopilot always kicks in. And
have you ever, when that happens, have you ever like kind of lovingly said, "Hey, Oma, remember those times where you're talking about you never wanted to be," but
all
the
the time,
just like calm and cool and collected,
it's always calm first.
I see.
But my mom is a fucking 3-year-old.
Yeah.
So, and my dad knows that too. Like, I have to always check my mom about how she speaks to my dad all the time, and it pisses me off, right? So, for example, like my dad went to the supermarket to go pick up some shikcho, some white vinegar, right? He comes with a smaller bottle than the huge family size one, and she fucking screams at him, and she goes, "What?" I was like, "Why the fuck would you even get this size? Like, when do I ever get?" I was like, "Hey," I was like, "Do you drive? Did you pick it up from the store?" Right?
Yeah, but you're matching her energy though.
Yeah, and I was like, you need to knock that shit. I was like, when you talk to people like that, you cannot scream at somebody who's doing you a favor. And then she got really quiet. She didn't really say much, which usually means she knows she's fucked up, right? And I was like, he can go back and get another one. And then my dad's like, she's just like that. And I think that's why my mom has always been like that, because my dad's just kind of like, she's like that. She's like that.
Okay, so there's two sides of that coin, right? The one side is she's never got checked in a way, right?
100% is never been checked.
Okay, but then let's say there's other factors then though too, right? Is if she was in a situation with her parents or her mom or whatever, right? Where she was in a yelling match with her and her mom, and that happened her whole life. I don't know, growing up, did you yell at your mom or... Like, did you guys ever get into yelling matches?
We always argued, but I couldn't speak Korean very well, so it really was one-sided.
I see. Yeah, because it was a limited interaction because of the language barrier.
Yeah, so it's not like I could really say anything back until later. I got it. You know?
I guess, yeah, because I guess another thing that I think about, can you get me back on the topic? You know my ass when I get high, it can be talking about something complex and completely forget.
I don't know. You didn't start what you were talking about yet.
Okay. What were you last saying?
Vinegar story.
Mom's interaction about reactiveness and then shouting matches. I don't disagree with you that, let's say, nobody's ever checked your mom, but also, has anyone ever talked to your mom? And you say that you have, where in that same situation, instead of like when your dad went and picked up the vinegar, let's say you were to like calmly say, "Mom, it's not that big of a deal, Like,
it doesn't matter." So my mom
still respond
she responds the same way. That's what I'm saying. That's why she's like a child. It's not how you speak to her. It's I didn't get my way. And that's her biggest problem. So with her, it's like, for example, yesterday or today when I was like, "Hey, so we have a sleep expert that we does." Do you see what I'm saying? It's like, shit, I didn't even get 3 words out. You know what I'm saying?
Wait, sorry, just because I'm high. Can you do one more impersonation of her barking back at
you? That's what she does. So I know for a fact it's not how you speak to my mom. And the funny thing is that we also get into arguments about that too. She goes, "It's because of how you speak to me." I was like, "No, it's not how I speak to you. 90% of the times it's nice. No matter what it is, it's I didn't get my way, I shout." And I was like, that is literally your problem. Like, you do not like opposition. Which is why, once again, my mom has very limited friends because she's always alpha. You know what I mean? And it's that type of person that, like, in her mind, the funny thing is, like, she doesn't really tell other people to fuck off. My mom just literally looks at them and just goes and just walks away, and she's done with people like that, which is why her circle's very small, which is probably why she keeps her sanity, which is also why she has the same bad habits, because she chooses not to deal with people who give her opposition.
You ever struggle with that?
No. Like, my idea is that that's why, like, even Mariel has seen, like, all my group of friends, they're very opinionated and they're very, very weird and different, right? Like, I've always liked, it's not like I enjoy opposition, but it's always nice to bounce ideas with different people.
You want other perceptions so that everyone can get perspective.
Yeah, it's also just fun.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's really, really fun. Like, I don't mind if somebody doesn't agree with me, right? What I do mind is just how people disagree with me. and if they can explain their disagreements, right?
For sure.
That's the thing that I only care about. Like we had a podcast with me and Ed, and we were talking about Elon or whatever, and Ed hates Elon Musk, right? So he hates Elon Musk. So he has a lot of things that he kind of looks up that he really gets, Ed goes into his, I call it his rabbit holes of hate. And then he will find every reason to hate somebody, right? And it makes him very informative about certain subjects. For me, I preface things of like, listen, I don't know, but this is what I last read because I don't really care, right? And so, he had a rebuttal for everything, right? I didn't give a shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, oh, cool, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that, right? And then, of course, I'm going to go ahead and read about what he's talking about because it's very interesting. And, and it's funny how people in the comments, they fall into the category of they don't like opposition, right? So because what I was saying was getting quote unquote fact checked by Ed, right? They were like, what the fuck? You don't even fucking know anything. It's like, yeah, I already prefaced that. So why is that making you angry? I was like, oh, you're that person. And, just to go on to another side.
I was thinking about this.
Yeah.
Just real quick, right? Like in jails, like you always ask, like, oh, why did you do this? Or how did they get there, right? And then the guy says, I got disrespected, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean you just never got ego checked? And that feeling of like being exposed for something that you did is so uncomfortable that you just can't deal with it?
I mean, from my personal experience, for people who do like violent shit like that, it's usually a social thing, right? You don't look like a bitch. Like usually like people who do violent shit like that, it's because it was like,
I show weakness.
Yeah, it's just taught to you like that. Like I'll give you a great fucking example, right? There's this guy that I knew that had such a fucking short temper. Everybody that looked at him, he thought they wanted to scrap. And it was actually hilarious. Like there was one time we were at a Denny's and say I'm here, this motherfucker's over here, right? And this is him. And this fool's like, fuck is that guy looking at? He's like, he keeps fucking staring at me.
Joe Pesci stuff.
Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna fucking kill this motherfucker. And I look over at the guy, and the guy is like eating his food. He's just like, he's looking at him because he's looking. He's scared.
Yeah, he might have even just been staring off into like, and then he happened to lock eyes with him, and then
the guy who's like,
he chose him.
He's like eating his Grand Slam. He looks so nervous because he's not looking at. He's looking at the guy that's staring at him. And so, he's the type of dude that would be in jail. It's like, oh, this guy was disrespecting me, right? But it's like, these are narratives that you got to create in your own fucking head.
It's like, it's crazy. That perception is real, though, to that particular person who views that in that particular moment, right? Okay. You know how, like, the other day we were like, oh, like, what did you want to talk about? Anything on it? And I said, like, did you want to talk about anything? Yeah, we could just keep it chill. But then you were like, oh, maybe talk a little bit about mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was thinking about this, right? And so, like, like, mushrooms, like, changed my life in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
You know how they call, like, when you take that heroic dose, they call it an ego death.
Yeah.
Right. Mushrooms is crazy because, like, I don't know, let's say you do weed or whatever. A lot of people can do it because it lets them numb themselves out. It like lets you kind of get away from reality in a lot of ways. Like, let's say you drink alcohol. It kind of like, I don't know. I don't really partake in those other things. With weed, I'm kind of oddly the other way, right? I talk so much, right?
Alcohol is more like you're out of control, but you think you're in control.
I got you.
Yeah, that's what alcohol is like.
So the thing about mushrooms is I call it the truth teller. The question is, are you ready to hear the truth? Or see the truth, okay? And what I mean by that, not necessarily in a religious way, even though it might be, but I mean is like, okay, you come across the average person in life. I thought about this recently is the average person also has a very difficult time looking at themselves as somebody who makes a mistake, let's say, or can't admit that they did something wrong. Right? Like, I don't know, like it's just most people, like you're stuck in this loop and you just can't download any information, right? Everybody else is like, dude, what's your big problem? But in your eyes, it's like, it's impossible. You're just stuck in this manner, right? There's people like that.
Yeah.
If that particular person took a heroic dose and let's say went on a trip, I would say that they would probably define that as a bad trip. Mm-mm. And what I mean by that is, if a person can't even handle realities, like without any like mushrooms in the mix, if they take a heroic dose, it's going to be so scary.
Yeah, for sure.
Think about
man.
it, right?
No,
And then
yeah.
you also don't have anybody navigating, right? So let's just say like you're using it for therapeutic use, right? You know, I've never really done it in the idea of like just for fun. I did it because I was like, fuck it, I want to go heroic dose, right?
Yeah.
In those sessions, right, they call them the shamans, or in a therapeutical sense, right? There's like therapists that this is a multi-session thing. It's going on months. They're also doing regular therapy so that they're preparing you for this psychedelic experience, right? So they've, in a way, already kind of got you ready to be able to handle truths.
Yeah.
Like that's what happens, right? But imagine you just get thrown into the situation and you're already a liar. Like, can you imagine like a compulsive liar? And if they took like a heroic dose, I don't know, I could be wrong, but my guess is they would probably have a real bad trip.
Yeah, man. I've actually thought about that too with like when you did your like shroom trip, right? Like it's so funny because you mentioned that. Like I've always wondered what happens because they say like you're kind of faced with yourself when you do these shrooms, right? And you can't really escape it. It's like all those like things that you bury your inner thoughts. It doesn't matter. It's there and you have to face it because whatever the shroom is doing on a psychedelic level, you cannot hide from it. And so I feel that's what I was wondering. Like people who are habitual pathological liars, it must be the most frightening experience for them because it's like, oh shit, all the stuff that I've been burying and throwing in the basement, it's all out now. And now it's right here. Like they're probably the ones that'll probably have the worst trip ever because they're faced with all their inner demons that they've been lying to people about.
I mean, unless they're like a sociopath where they just, they don't like feel like anything in general, that might just be a fun time.
Yeah.
But I'm saying like, somebody who is like, who still kind of knows, I guess, let's say from right from wrong, let's say, right?
Yeah.
You know that, oh shoot. Sorry, my bad.
I don't know, I'm high.
You want any more?
Yeah.
Dude, I've just been sipping on that. Anyways, going back to like, just this whole experience of truth seeking. If you're not ready for that, how are you going to navigate or interpret what you saw in front of you? Like,
that's so true. Yeah.
Versus if your mind was already ready to face, let's say, truths, it might be those experiences that people talk about where they say that they literally saw themselves die or they experienced literal death, right? And then from there, they went to this place, right? They always say this place, right? Some people look at it from a religious narrative. Let's say you're Christian. It's like that place between heaven and hell, purgatory, right? Let's say you're like more like a hippie like me and you really are connected to like, let's say just, like I love like everything about nature, right? I fucking love.
You turn into the fungus.
Yeah. You literally, you break down and you imagine yourself in the ground as a common visual, right?
Yeah.
And you get broken down. And as you know, right, that my method that I've taken on in philosophies of growing, right? It went from chemicals to like fucking regenerative, right?
Yeah.
But everything is connected, right?
Yeah.
And I know I sound like a hippie, but there's science behind this. Right?
Yeah.
Like think about like even just mycelium, right? Like like mycelium is, part of the mushroom, right? But the mushroom is just like the fruit, right? But there's this whole thing, right? Like the fruit isn't the tree, right? Like if you look at it like an orange tree, right? The orange is just the fruit, but the actual thing is the tree.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mycelium is like the tree. It's this whole big network of something, right? And everything is connected.
The Last of Us.
Yeah. Like everything is connected in the sense that like, the mushrooms, what do? They break down organic matter, right? Just like bugs do, right? So in this context, you're in this purgatory and you see things. And then for some weird reason during this time, you think it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm just part of this whole regenerative circular thing of just, let's say, life and death, let's say. And something about accepting that is like a real ego death, right?
Yeah.
Or somebody, I don't know, gets called out and then they're like, dude, I never looked at that. And then they download it, right?
Yeah.
Like to me, that whole concept of that ego death and that happening, right? And so many people before me have recollected these situations that felt exactly real, where they died and they literally died, right? And they're also their ego died. And then all of a sudden you have this incredible sense of like thankfulness.
I'll tell you this though, I have known most people who did shrooms to have the ego death, but that only lasted like a month. And they went right back to their old fucking ways.
100%.
Like, you fucking bullshit pieces of shit. How do you go see God and then be like, man?
I mean, I think this is where also having the head wisdom counts.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, because right, like they say that whatever hits you, like I don't know, like the science is like these receptors, but it's like mimicking serotonin, right? And serotonin's like, basically like has so many functions, right, when it comes to emotion and regulation. So yeah, in that short state, I wouldn't imagine them being in that afterglow of that mushroom trip where they're still in an empathetic or more thoughtful state. But yeah, as soon as it's gone, because they never were able to kind of plug the mechanisms of like, how did I even get to this place where I'm so fucked up?
Yeah.
Right.
Everybody talks about, I don't want to say everybody, but a lot of the people who I talked to that did shrooms, and the only reason why I know so many people is because I contemplated, trying shrooms eventually. But either way, they've mentioned this thing where they always say that they were always scared to look in the mirror because everybody warns them like, don't look in the mirror, don't look in the mirror.
Yeah.
And I think 4 stories that I've heard, I'm not sure if you were one of them, and it usually has to do with people, like all 4 of these people who told me that they had this very similar experience was that when they looked into this mirror, they would always see a younger version of themselves. And it happened to 4 people that I know. And usually, I can't remember all their stories, but I might be.
I have one about a friend.
Yeah.
Mine was, I did look in the mirror, but I didn't look young.
Oh.
I looked opposite. I looked old and wrinkly and intrepid. And that was one of the beginning journeys of saying, I need to be sustainable with my health because that visual, I was in Chewy's fucking office. And then it was like probably like 2 or 3 in the morning. And I was staring this close to the mirror for maybe 4 hours.
What the fuck?
Looking at every imperfection on my face so that when I collectively looked at it, it just looked like an old wrinkly version. Like, again, I don't look like a young buck anymore either, but I'm saying like I looked in like the last stages of life type situation, and not even like an old wise. It was just, I'm just saying the interpretation was, look how unhealthy, this is what's going on inside you right now.
Yeah. My friend went through that experience that your buddy went through, which is like the younger version of themselves. And what he saw was a very, very happy person. And it was like, for him, it was like during the time he was in college. So he saw that young college person and he couldn't grasp, he just kept crying because he saw this version of himself that he wished that he isn't now. Right. And it made him like second guess like a lot of the moves that he was making. Now, mind you, he went back to his old ways. But during that month or so, he was in a very different headspace.
Yeah, they call it the afterglow.
Yeah.
They literally, I think it's called the afterglow. Again, I'm not an expert, but I like to read a little bit more about it.
Yeah.
Before, I kind of like to want to know why I do things,
Mm-hmm. And you know what? With all these type of experiences too, like, I think that there's a lot of people who can go through that, right? Because especially like an individual who is so good at keeping their guard up, right? And there's nobody that externally can get to break that wall down. Their wives, their brothers, their sisters, their friends of so many years can't even do it, but shrooms can do it, right? It cracks this wall that they've always put up so well.
And I don't want to say it's an end all beyond, because I say that too is because I don't know, maybe a sociopath, like somebody who just doesn't, it's just not in them.
Yeah.
Like, or a psychopath. I don't know. I always fuck up with the terms, but like a psychopath, if it's just not there, then it might, who knows, that might be the person who just ends up killing everybody around him.
Man, you know what I mean? Man, I tell you this though, yeah. I know a buddy of mine who did E.
Wait, can I tell you? Sorry, I want you to hear just so I don't forget. Can I tell you about a generalization of a friend that I took through where I was kind of a shaman through, and he did everything wrong, what I told him not to do? Okay, so you know me. I'm
yeah.
all about prerequisites, right?
Yeah.
Like
100%.
like it's not just show up at the event. It's like, like it's like, I don't know. It's like, I'm like a, like a reverend, like saying like, like prepare your heart before you come, right?
Mhm.
What that means practically speaking is don't come like, cause we had planned this out, right? And I said, the next time you come, we'll do it. I'll do it with you. But like the oddly, I talk like a motherfucker when I'm high. I talk like a motherfucker when I'm not high. When I'm doing shrooms, I have no reason to speak. I will speak to communicate. Those same thoughts are going in my head, right? So, Robin's 8 billion miles an hour, things are going on, but I have no reason to talk. Anyways, so my homie, I'm like, clear out your schedule, number one. So when we do this, don't have to, where you have to plan something afterwards, before, it's chill. I want you to chill, like treat it like it's a retreat, right? This motherfucker, like, I think he like gets right off the plane and he comes. I can't remember that part, but basically I said, no phone. The phone has to be off and gone, right?
Yeah,
And I get
people
it.
say that.
That's not a normal thing. It's the same concept of having to go into the woods and do a cleansing. Don't take your phone. Just, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to be right there and present, right? But also it's because if you have to worry about other things, it might get real scary and not in a good way.
Yeah.
And you might not never get to interpret this place of feeling comfort. You got to be in a comfortable place. Anyways, this guy doesn't do that. On top of that, I said, okay, you're going to come across these things and it's going to terrify you. Don't fight it or try to resist it. Just ask, maybe even say like, why are you there? Like, you're supposed to do that, right? This motherfucker, dude. He's a homie that needs like probably like 12 sessions before the walls start. But I'll tell you this much. Like when you see like, like those big armies go on and then they have the fortress and then they do this crazy attack and then it stands strong, but it was like, right? That happened to him, but this motherfucker was the only person. Look, I haven't done it that many times. I've done it like maybe 4 or 5 times, right? And experienced it with friends maybe a few times. So anyways, this guy is the only guy I've ever seen power through it the whole time. So he didn't even try to fight it. He would just try to step into reality. So like this was the layout, right? Literally, he was, how the couch used to be here?
Yeah.
He was laying and looking up at the stucco for 6 hours straight. This meant chaos to him. This was scary because, you look up at the popcorn ceiling, it's like nothing is symmetrical.
Yeah.
It's all over the place. But then imagine you're looking over there and you see the cupboards and it's all symmetrical. So for him, that was safety, right? So this guy somehow had this narrative. So he'd look up at the fucking ceiling and things get wavy, right? But then storms might come and things might get real heavy.
Yeah.
Right? You've heard that before?
Yeah.
This motherfucker, he goes, I gotta look at the cabinets. The cabinets are safe. The cabinets. And
So
he
this
did
fool
back
fought.
and forth, yeah. So he kept on cheating and going back to the cabinets because that was his reality.
You should have stuck him in a dark room.
No, but the good thing is, like I said, the fortress though went, but you knew that with, let's say, proper responsible like shaman or therapist.
Look, I understand too. Like I get it because it's scary. It's a frightening thing having to sit there and be like, damn, there's something wrong with me, and I know there's something wrong with me, and I know I have to address it, but fuck, I'm not gonna do it.
Well, let me ask you this question. Let me see. I'm like somebody who's just trying to take some survey information, right?
Yeah.
Again, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. It's just I'm just gonna ask you questions.
Yeah.
Like what? Like why do you want to do it? Okay, so there's curiosity, right? A little curiosity, of course. There's some of that, but outside of that, let's say.
I don't know. Like, I don't know if I have any unsolved issues that I haven't worked with through like a therapist for like fucking 10 years now, over 10 years. I mean, there's probably going to be something that I don't know about, right? That I haven't really talked about all the way through. Huh. But it's like the cool thing is like being an early advocate of therapy. One, because it was forced upon me. And then, but being an early advocate of that was like, I really got to talk through a lot of my stuff, which is something that I never really did, right? And I always tell people like the biggest difference between like, there's a lot of guys who go, oh, I don't need therapy because I talk to my homies. I was like, there's a difference between something being therapeutic and something being therapy and something that's therapeutic, right? Releasing your emotions and having somebody reflect back how you feel to validate your feelings will always feel good.
It's like social media.
Yeah.
Just throw it out there into the ether. You throw something out with any level of accountability or downloading information.
Yeah. And like the thing about what therapy did was that it allowed me to say what I wanted to say without having to feel like I'm being judged. And then the healing process can start after, right? And it's like, because that never was allowed for me, there was never a space for me to do that. I could never really heal from it, right? So if it was like issues with like my dad and I didn't get along at all, and then the first thing that I had to figure out was like, why, right? But then I never ever said out loud, I hate my dad.
Well, that's a really scary thing to say.
Yeah,
that's like if you're a Christian and then you start talking about like, let's say Jesus in like some real like bad manner or like it's real sacrilege.
Like
it's scary.
Having like that power to say that. And like, I really felt it at the time. I genuinely hated him, right? But I would always feel, well, even when I said it, I felt like the worst human being on earth saying that out loud, right? But because I was allowed to say that and say how I feel, which I was never allowed before, the therapy sessions were more like, okay, why do you hate him, right? And I could go into the surface shit, right? He's fucking mean to me, the way he talks to me. I know I'm not his favorite kid, all that other stuff. That really wasn't it, right? It was like, what it boiled down to was like, I don't know who he is, but he wants to tell me what to do, right?
What he says and then what his actions are were very misaligned as well.
Or 100%, right? And then through therapy, and I've talked about this.
The typical pastor's kid goes through that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, because a lot of people don't know about that though, right? The PK stereotype is,
and you always feel this.
You're the one who has to face the wrath of the person after the pulpit, right?
Yeah. And it's like, there was that part too, which you reminded me of, which was like, I always felt you were so great to your congregation, but you were so shitty to your son, right? That's like the curse of the PK. It's what we always felt. It's like everybody sees like this great image of my father, but it's like he calls me stupid and dumb every day, makes me feel worthless all the time, and that was something that I held against him for a while. And what actually helped me through therapy wasn't for me just to vent how I felt about him. What I walked away with it was like, oh shit, I actually don't know my dad at all, so I don't know his whys. And that's when I started asking my mom who he was when they met, because they grew up together. And then I got to understand why he is the way he is. And I was
perspective.
Yeah, I was like, oh, you hate me because I'm you. Like I have all the negative qualities that you have, but you're trying to fix it in me. And it makes you mad because you see all the worst qualities in yourself and you see me doing those things. And you're mad at yourself because you taught me it. I got this shit from you. And so now he's like trying to undo it, but he's not going to say out loud because he's not the one going through like these sessions of like, oh, I'm sorry I'm so mean to you because I just don't want you to be like me. Right. And the great example of that is the anxiety thing that I've talked about. He hated when I was anxious as a kid, not being able to order food, look people in the eye, talk to people. And because that's my dad. Right. And he saw that little piece of shit in me and he was trying to fix himself through me. And that part was like something that was great. So, those are the stuff that I've went through throughout this period. I'm curious to see what Shrooms would have in store for me. Right. Stuff that I don't know right now. Right. So that's like one part. And the other part of why I want to try Shrooms is because of my struggle with religion, right? And everybody talks about the sense of like seeing God, whatever their God is, right? They see something and that seems to be something that they kind of align themselves with. And for me too, like I'm in that space of like, maybe it's because I hold myself to such a high standard when it comes to religion. It's like, just like before I couldn't say, Dad, I hate you. It's hard for me to say, I'm not a Christian. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that part trips me out.
Yeah,
so it's like
scared. Like, when you go past a certain point, that point of no return, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like straight up Lord of the Rings stuff, right? When Samwise Gamgee, he stops when they get to the farthest point in Shoot, what's up, girl?
Hi, little Edson.
All right.
All right.
So, Samwise, right? He gets to that farthest point, and then Frodo's like, "Hey, what's up? What's going on?" Right? And he's like, "This is the farthest place I've ever been."
Yeah.
And that, to me, it hits home for me in that scene, because it's like this idea of this scariness of just the unknown.
Yeah.
Right? Because, I mean, you can apply this to a lot of different things, right? But if you look at anything that was your reality, if that's no longer the reality, that's fucking scary.
Yeah, especially like growing up as a kid. Almost every move that I made, whether it was right or wrong, there was always this thing of like going back to, is this very Christ-like? Am I living for God? Right? Now, and it goes back to when I was talking about why it's hard for me to say I'm not a Christian. Number one, it's I know it's stupid to say, and some people might understand this, they might not, depending if you've ever been in the situation. It's like, I'm scared that statement is false and it's true at the same time. Right? So it's true. I don't really believe that there's a God, but it's false because there's a part of me that still does. And so it's also hard for me to say it out loud because I really don't know, right? And it's weird. And it's weird to say this, right? But I have these moments where it's like, I don't feel God's real. And you want to hear some trippy shit? When I had a son, I felt that I saw God in my child. And I was like, oh shit, is God real? You know what I mean? Which was so fucking weird. And then I start to navigate this idea of, if God is real, what he says is true, then up until, for the last 10 years, I live for myself and I haven't lived for God. So what am I doing? So it's like, oh shit. Then I go through this existential crisis of like, what should I be doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the other part of the reasons why I want to try shrooms, is maybe it'll help me face that and get to these thoughts of like why I'm thinking this stuff.
I'll tell you this much. I mean, leading up to that, these are the conversations though that you should continue to have if you're not going to go, like, let's say if you don't do it through, like, let's say, go up north and do one of those, like, therapy sessions where it takes, you
the
do that.
Ayahuasca.
Yeah. Because the more you go every stone unturned, at least when it comes to like emotions and who you are as a human being, it's going to always help that situation. Even though, like, visually, it might be something that you won't even be prepared for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It will still symbolically be, if you ask, what are you trying to tell me? That's where that narrative will lock on.
Yeah.
And that's where it'll change you in that extreme moment, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's the exorcist girl, you're laying down and, it's from the ceiling, the exorcist girl is just like right here. And instead of like trying to fight it or just die, right?
You know what's so crazy?
Like,
there are.
What's up? Why are you here?
I'll probably see some crazy shit, man. Because even like without, like sometimes when I'm high, and then I will picture this person that's me. This is like when I'm fucking like numbingly high.
Okay.
I'll picture this person that's me, and that's the which is the version of myself that I hate, and I'll beat the fucking shit out of this guy, which is so crazy.
Wait,
right?
Okay. So I had this moment where I visually saw you take the toke, where I lost the first 3 words that you said. Can you say that over? Because I really want to hear.
Yeah. So I'll something that happens like when I get like numbingly high.
Okay.
Or I'll reflect on the stuff that I want to change about myself, the parts of myself that I hate. Right? Like, let's say the guy that always gets angry immediately and wants to fucking throw down and fight, right? Very reactive, right? Because that's how I grew up. And it's like, I imagine myself beating the shit out of that guy, like almost killing him, like killing this guy, because I don't ever want him to come out again, right? And the funny thing is, like, the weirdest thing that happens is that's very therapeutic for me. It's like destroying this piece of myself that I don't like. I don't know why, when I'm really fucking high, that's like the therapy for me. It feels good.
The crazy thing about shrooms is you have this idea or perception of what that might be. But like, let's say you were kind of even remotely right. The actual metaverse version of what might be presented to you would be, you'd be fighting it and killing it to death, and it would keep coming back and multiplying, where it would eventually devour you.
Wow.
Like, do you know what I'm saying? So like, your perception of even, the scary opponent right? It's like you think you might know, and yeah, you might you might be able to maybe brain hack it that way a little bit and then kind of go. But that's what you know what I'm saying? So it's like imagine the fear that you might have with just fighting an opponent, let's say, but imagine that opponent coming back and then multiplying. Just I'm just saying, right? That's think about an ego death where you're literally like, I don't know, it's kind of it's jokingly true. Heroic dose. You could take it and still feel empathetic and feel like, that afterglow, and that's why people microdose, right? But I'm talking about that fucking real heroic dose, right?
Yeah, look, I'm saying it's always it's an option that's out there for me, right? And like I said, I got nothing against it. I think I just have to like mentally prepare myself first,
Yeah.
and then be in a space where I can take it, right? Yeah. And that's what I'm kind of waiting for. And I think I'm, obviously there's a lot going on right now, but that's the thing that I'm waiting for. It's like, shit, I'm ready,
Yeah.
And I've only heard in my cases like good things coming from somebody taking shrooms, especially like a good dose, right? Like a decent dose. Not ayahuasca. Ayahuasca, I know a couple people who fucked up their lives.
Yeah, I don't know nothing about that. The only thing I know is psilocybin. But again, 5 grams is the traditional. It's the traditional point of that heroic dose.
Yeah.
So 5 grams of dried mushroom. So
I'm surprised it's 6 hours long, dude. That's so fucking crazy.
No. It could be longer than that. So there's stages. So like that, a trip could be 6 hours, but you'll have an afterglow for maybe even months.
Yeah.
And you literally, a person changes. Like a person actually, like, I mean, right? Again, I don't know all of the specific scientific terms, right?
Yeah.
But if it's properly used and you're one of the candidates, the pathways that got blocked off by like trauma or your own mental blocks and things like that, those pathways open up again.
Yeah.
And again, to me, that sounds like fucking mycelium.
Yeah.
Again, like I know, like again, I sound so hippie, but to me, and I know this is my narrative because I'm not a man of God anymore, but I also believe that the Christian religion, at least when it comes to like Christ and the gospel, whoever wrote that knows a lot about Homo sapiens. I'll tell you that much. In terms of Homo sapiens that are in tribal or aren't killing each other. You're past the point, that birds of paradise again.
Yeah.
You no longer have to worry too much about, being raped, pillaged, food, water, shelter,
100%,
right?
100%, dude.
Anyways, like.
Yeah, man. Like, look, I'm curious to see if you guys, we'll wrap this episode here with this note. If you guys have tried shrooms before, write about your experience because I just want to read them, right? Yeah, sure. And then maybe we'll read them out on another episode.
I'll tell you this much, dude. Blind leading the blind, though, too, man. When it comes to shrooms, like, if you don't have any level of being able to interpret data and take a wisdom out of that, like, that's why it's just a psychedelic experience for some people or whatever. And then all of a sudden they get sad and depressed, and then people will chase it with weed to make themselves feel better because they don't want to go through that pensive, empathetic time because they don't know how to navigate those emotions, right? That happens.
We're probably going to hear it in the stories, though. But hey, guys, that wraps up this episode of the Genius Brain Podcast, the Living Room Makeshift Edition. You can catch Genius Brain every Sundays at 12 p.m. Check out my store, Jumbi Waikiki. It is in Waikiki. That is Hawaii. And there's a bunch of Jumbis all over the nation. 10 stores right now going on, I don't know, a gajillion more. Thank you guys for supporting. You can find Robin at Instagram. That's Robin at Robin Durden.
Also, Little Meats LA.
Are you starting it back up?
The handle is gonna, obviously, right? At the end of the day, is feeding people. I love feeding people and hosting. So, what different verse that we're entering, and I don't know exactly how I'm gonna do it. But yes, Little Meats, I'm going to start documenting a bit more about my new life.
Little Meats LA, and we'll talk more about that stuff on another podcast. But see y'all next time. Peace.